Texas!
He's a 10.
I choose this family.
Hey guys, and welcome to episode 58 of 911 Lone Star Roundup. I'm one of your hosts, EJ, and with me are my lovely co-hosts, Katie.
Hey guys.
And Grace.
Hi everyone.
Today we will be talking about season 3, episode 11 of 911 Lone Star, entitled Prince Albert in a Can, or as I like to call it, the Carlos is awesome episode.
That is Carlos,
the Carlos
that is
and
Grace.
Grace and Carlos
Grace
did amazing.
episode.
Yes, Grace. Grace, superiority.
Yes.
There is a lot to talk about, so let's get talking. So the episode, okay, so a lot of times we have in Lone Star where there's like very specific separate scenes, but like this episode there was a lot of like multiple things going on in the same like scene. So we start out with Grace gets a 911 call about a woman saying that her boyfriend's gone crazy, he's gonna kill her, he's on drugs, and she and her baby are hiding in the closet, and you can kind of hear a baby crying in the background.
Not kinda, it's very loud. Actually.
And then she also says she smells gas, and then the call disconnects, and Grace is like trying to get all this information out of her, and it's like, okay, something's up.
Before we go further, this episode is going to trip me up because I keep hearing Grace and I'm like, what?
Yeah, there's that.
More than usual, actually.
Yeah,
This is probably one of the most Grace heavy episodes we've had, so I just
Yeah.
know
Oh yeah, that's
that
exactly
I am
why.
going to really
Yeah.
trip up today.
That
So if I
is-
ever just go, what? You'll know that I forgot that we were talking about for a moment.
Relatable.
Right.
Anyhow.
So Grace Ryder, let's see if we can do that, manages to get APD, SWAT, and AFD on scene. And there's this moment where you see Carlos getting out of his car, which, okay, I loved this moment. Carlos gets out of his car. Owen is there. The ambulance is there. So we've got like Tommy and TK and Nancy and everybody. So we get
Actually, Nancy wasn't there.
She wasn't?
No, Nancy wasn't
I
in
heard
this
people
episode.
complaining about that. I'm just like,
Okay. So I
Please.
thought I saw her.
No,
Okay,
she wasn't in
maybe I
this
didn't.
episode or the last one.
Okay. Anyways, so we see Carlos walking towards Owen, and they're like, Officer Reyes, Captain Strand. And then there's this like brief interaction between TK and Carlos. They're walking past each other, and there's like this kind of subtle nod to each other.
Yeah.
And it was like, I if I was TK, I'd be like, oh my God, my boyfriend is hot.
Uh-huh.
I have a feeling he has that
Okay.
every single time he looks at him.
Uh-huh.
I mean, Carlos in uniform, his hair.
Okay,
Mhm.
everything
That lighting
about
was
Carlos,
beautiful, like those siren lights.
Okay,
Yes.
everything about Carlos in this episode, yes. But the thing that really got me is like people being like, they just nodded at each other. What did you want them to do? Like make out? This is freaking like they're
This is
at
not
work.
911. This is
Right.
not 911. We're not going to have a Bethina moment.
I mean, if that happened
mean, that
after a
could
call, I
happen.
would not be complaining. But
Exactly.
this is not the
After.
moment. This is
After
not
the
the
call.
episode.
After the call, which was what Bethina did after the call. Yes,
Right.
after people. They're a little busy right now. And honestly, yeah, literally. What did you want other than a nod?
It's like,
They acknowledge each other.
Right.
it's like people like trying to be like, they must be in a fight because they did that. And it's like, what did you want to happen? I just people really just
Did you want a
Bobby.
profession of love in the middle of a crime scene? Like, is that what you want?
Right.
I roll when I see that in a fanfic. How do you think I would act if I saw this in the actual show?
Yeah,
I
I'm just like, Carlos is, and we know, as we've learned, Carlos is a control freak, and I'm sure he's very professional, which we already know.
Uh-huh.
So
yeah.
he's not just gonna like in the middle of a crime scene start making out with his boyfriend. So that's
Not
why
time,
they just
not
nodded at
place.
each other.
Not
I mean,
the time, not the place.
exactly.
And moving on.
At all.
Yes. Moving on. So SWAT initially only wants to go in, but there was brief discussion of possible gas also being spewed around, and Owen's like, if you guys shot anything, there's a spark from your gun, it could light up and everything's on fire and y'all are in trouble. So they have police goes in one way, and they're kind of they finally cave, because it was funny because he's like, he didn't want to let him go in, but then he's like, fine, let's get you kitted up, just stay behind us. And so Owen has him grab like extinguishers and oxygen, I think, just to take. So they kind of go in and they start clearing the house, and you can definitely see that there's like it's a mess. Like it's not what you'd expect for, an upscale house, but it's not.
Knowing the details that were given in the 911 call, it is creepier than the call would assume. But we know there's gonna be drugs there because she did admit that he like deals drugs and stuff like that, and that he does drugs. So we knew there was gonna be something along the lines of that there. But like it was like Mateo even says, like, this is really creepy, and I'm like, yeah, it kind of is.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and then I see like, you see the computer setup with like all the gaming stuff, and I'm like, oh man, like, I'm like, wish I had that gaming setup.
Please.
I know, right? I was like, oh man, I could like, what the Sims would look like on that setup.
Oh yeah, I do love The Sims, but other
I
than
love
that, I
The
play
Sims.
Carlos. I am Carlos in this episode. That's all I have to say.
Oh my gosh, yeah, Carlos, it was very entertaining.
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah, so they're clearing this, once they're clearing the house, Carlos is outside and he's kind of walking around the house and kind of the area, and he sees somebody kind of walking or like running through the bushes kind of in the back, and he's wearing like dark clothes. So he like calls it into Grace. And I loved how like Grace is like, okay, 363H20, and then she's like, Carlos, be careful. And I was like, oh yes, because we're starting to see the connections. 'Cause up until honestly like the first couple seasons, I didn't really feel like they knew each other.
See, I kind of feel the opposite. Like, I definitely feel like they knew each other work-wise, but obviously, like, after, like, season 1, yeah, they, like, definitely knew each other, like, work-wise, and kind of more so in season 2, but I feel like season 2, or even this season, they kind of might have, like, behind the scenes gotten, like, a personal introduction to each other, just with all the things, like, with the firehouse, and, like, TK and
They have a
Judd, like,
connection.
they all have
Yeah.
connection. They all have people to connect them. So I feel like they knew each other, but now like this episode kind of like introduces like them like becoming, I guess, like kind of like friends.
Yeah.
I feel like we did actually see them working a little together season 2 in 2 different occasions, but like I feel like they knew each other way before Lone Star was even a thing.
Oh
They
yeah, I
were-
agree.
Like, obviously they would have known each other over the phone, and they probably have met at some point, but like I feel like this is just really the point where we're getting to see, because I didn't feel like there was anything very new about them talking.
I agree.
No.
This episode.
Yeah, no, I
They
didn't.
clearly knew each other pretty well.
Yeah.
Well, this was their first like in-person scene together. Their first like in-person, like not like
Yeah, this is the first time
meeting.
we've seen them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's-
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, because like you said, because she was on the call when they had that domestic disturbance pizza call, in season 2, and another thing in season 2. But
even
that
before that, the volcano episode, remember the girl in the food truck?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
We
I mean, I
didn't
didn't
really
forget
see them working together there, but we know they were.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of people were really up in arms. It's like, that's not working together. That's just like she's directing him on the calls. That's a whole other topic and discussion for later.
Anyway,
yeah. So back to the episode. So Carlos sees the guy. He, says he's a police officer, asks him to freeze. The guy's like freaking out. They're asking him like where his girlfriend is, because the girlfriend was supposedly in the room, which there's no mom and baby in the closet or anywhere in that house.
Oh yeah.
And so Grace is like, wait, what, because she's hearing this from the call center. I can only imagine how she's feeling going through this, like hearing all the like things and calls and responses from like Owen and Judd and Carlos, and not being able to actually be there and put the pieces together.
Yeah.
And then she tries to radio Carlos while Carlos is still trying to like disarm this guy, because he sees this guy has a knife, and he puts his gun away and pulls his taser on him.
Yeah.
which-
Well, also because like the guy is getting closer and closer to him. So if
Yeah.
he doesn't try to de-escalate this, which I gotta say,
Mhm.
like we've seen like little bit of Carlos being a cop these last 3 seasons, and we've seen like how he de-escalates situations, which I really like. Like I really like seeing these types of scenes because it really just shows like how he works, and like I liked all of this. Like this is everything.
Right.
I thought they handled this really well, actually.
I agree.
So did I.
Because he put away his gun and he grabbed his taser. Good thing. And
Yep.
he waited till the last possible moment to fire the taser.
Right.
Because he was trying to de-escalate it, but he
Yep.
eventually fired it as soon as he realized this was not de-escalating. He was now in danger because the guy kept getting closer. As far
Well,
I'm no cop, but as far as I'm looking, I'm like, he did everything right, and then even
right. He
more,
was
because
giv-
if you have someone going
Yeah.
against you with a weapon, you do technically have the right to defend yourself.
Right.
And
Oh,
he
yeah,
did,
and
but he tried.
exactly.
He tried
Yeah.
to have it in any other way.
Right, and he gave the guy multiple opportunities to put the knife down.
Multiple. The guy was
and stop.
clearly
Yeah.
out of it, though.
He was very high and very high on drugs.
Very.
Very, yeah.
And you
definitely.
don't have the same processing capabilities
Yeah.
when you're under an influence, and so probably everything that was happening, it wasn't registering for him.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and initially Carlos had his gun out because he didn't know what he was going to come across. And then as soon as he realized, okay, this guy is high, he's not acting himself, but he doesn't seem like he's going to like stab me, even though he had a knife. We don't know the whole story right now, except
Right.
the woman is not there where she said she was. And it's like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And Carlos is busy with this guy, so he realizes it, and he pulls his taser instead, which is good. To be honest, and I don't want to go into this because I don't want this, but I was worried where this was going because of all the stuff that's gone on in the last year or so with stuff. Especially
Everything
when
being brought
Yeah.
forward, you really have to walk a thin line when
Mhm.
dealing with these types
Yeah.
of situations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's why I said I think they really represented it well.
Oh yeah.
And
Like
I think they handled it in the best way they could have for still keeping
Right.
it pretty realistic.
yeah,
I agree. Like, cause like the way I think about it is that if the way the guy kept getting closer to him, if Carlos didn't do anything, like if he just kept trying to de-escalate by talking to the guy, talking to him was gonna do anything. Like the
right.
guy
He
was
would have
gonna
had that
stab
knife
him.
buried in his gut.
Exactly.
Like-
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
Honestly, if the guy hadn't had a knife, I still would have felt threatened the way he was coming on like that. And he did have a knife, a big old kitchen knife.
Yeah.
And those things are nasty.
yeah. Also,
And
like
so
even without a weapon, you don't know what he could do. He could literally attack him and take his gun or taser.
it also depends, what is he on? Is he on something that will kind of
Exactly.
eliminate pain for him?
Right.
Like is there something that is going to make him kind of not a normal human and attack further? Like what is he
Right.
on? That's the
Yeah.
entire question. And it gets even worse when it's a cocktail of things.
Right. And so Carlos ends up having to tase the guy. And so he's saying like taser, taser, taser. And so Grace is hearing all this.
Uh-huh.
And the guy falls to the ground. Well, he still has the knife in his hand. And unfortunately, when he falls right on his neck with the knife. And so when Carlos goes to arrest him and, put his hands behind his back, he realizes the guy's, very, very in jeopardy of dying. So he calls TK and Tommy, or calls for the medics. They come over.
Calls Grace, who then says the
Yeah.
medics are already on scene, which he knew, and they come over.
Yeah. And unfortunately, by the time they get there,
There was no
the guy
salvaging
is
that.
gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even
that was
if they had
bad.
been there as soon as he stabbed himself, he
Yeah.
did it straight up into the head from underneath the
Right.
chest. It
Well,
was such a bad. I'm surprised he was alive at all.
Right. And immediately when Carlos saw it, he like knelt down and started trying to give him first aid, and he was calling for help. And so he did everything right. He tried to provide care and, until medics could get there. And then just watching him stand there with Marjan and Judd as they're realizing this guy was not going to
And
make it. It was just like you could see the pain in Carlos's face.
Yeah, he was panicking like
Mhm.
through the whole thing. I don't mean to laugh about that, but Eddie, sorry guys. Sorry, you guys knew what I meant.
Panic.
Sorry, but
Yeah.
he was freaking out, and I felt so bad
He
for him
was like
because
he
honest-
tried,
Yeah, he
Yeah.
tried, and I feel like that's like just who Carlos is. Like he
and it wasn't on
always-
him at all. Like it
Right.
wasn't anything he had done. The guy just fell on his own. Talk about
Yeah.
falling on your own sword, that kind of thing. Like fell on his own knife.
Yeah,
And in
yeah.
the most random way possible. And so like some speculations were true, there was someone who died during the arrest, so to speak, because we were talking about this last week.
Mhm.
Yes.
But it wasn't anything anyone else did.
Right.
Okay,
It was the freakest accident.
Yeah, I'm relieved in a sense of how it played out, because I was afraid. I wasn't thinking anything anybody was thinking, but I was afraid that like they would have it happen and like Carlos had to like shoot somebody, or he had to do whatever. He had to do what he had to do. And then people were going, it was mostly what the people were going to make it out to be that I was afraid of. I was afraid people would make it out like he was a killer. And I'm like, that's not it. Like, so I think the way that it played out, like it worked and it made a lot of sense, and it was better for Carlos.
Oh yeah, I'm so glad they didn't go the route of him just having to shoot somebody that killed them, you know, and him having to take a life. But this was he did what he was supposed to do. He tased the guy fell. It was an accident that he landed on the knife. And yes, Carlos tased him, which caused him to fall on the knife, but it's not Carlos's fault that he passed away.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad they didn't go with just Carlos shooting the guy and killing him.
I absolutely love that. Like, logically, my brain is like, okay. Realistically, I'd be shocked if we never see Carlos shoot somebody in the show eventually, just simply because I'm not saying it's a good thing, but it is a thing that a lot of what happens in that type of work does involve a discharge of weapon.
Right.
And we've already seen it multiple times with Athena, and so I would be shocked if we never see it with Carlos. But in this situation, I'm glad it wasn't that. I'm glad it was only a taser. I'm glad it was only an accident. And you know, that's a nasty death, so I feel for the guy. But like,
right. Yeah. And then when Carlos, I can't remember who asked, but I think it was Carlos that asked like where the girlfriend was or something. And and Judd's like,
I think he was like, please tell me you rescued the girl or something. Like he kind of needed to know this wasn't all for nothing.
Oh, please. Yeah. He was like, please tell me you found the girlfriend and the baby. And like they had said that there was no other victims, is basically what they said. Also, did you guys see when like TK and Tommy first get there, and like Carlos is freaking out and TK put his like hand on Carlos's knee or whatever?
No, I saw that in the notes. I was
somebody
like,
pointed that out on Twitter the night this episode aired. So when I rewatched it, I saw it. It's not something you would really pick out unless you're really looking for it. It was very subtle and it happened for like probably half a second, but it is very like, it's a good thing to see, I guess.
It's the simple little gestures of, you know, the way they can like comfort each other.
Yes, I love it.
Just watching this go down, we already knew from the synopsis that this was swatting. We already knew that's what this was about. But like even going in knowing what it was about, like watching them comb the house, find that it was definitely not that situation, and it was something else. I swear.
Yeah, and you know, they kind of figure out quickly that it was a prank, and so the next scene we get is Judd and Grace at home, or Judd with Charlie at home. He's with Charlie playing with her, and Grace comes home kind of late from work and decides, I guess would have had to have gone into a review or something, or a debrief of what happened, and you know, Grace has kind of shared with Judd that she's decided to take some time, and Judd's like, so they're making it your fault? And she's like, no, I made that decision. And she feels like she did wrong by missing the signs of it not being a real call, so she's kind of blaming herself, and she's like, doesn't feel like she could really make a true call again, because she'd be like questioning and, you know, everything, which is understandable. Like she let it go once.
I get where she's coming from. However, in this situation, I don't think you could really not send people out. You couldn't not dispatch because you might be able to see the signs.
Yeah, and I think this might be the first time. I think the most
you could do is let them know that there are signs. Like you can't not send people.
Yeah, I don't think that's what she was saying though. Like I don't think she was thinking about not, like if it was a joke, not doing anything, because legally you can't not dispatch somebody even if it is a joke, even if it is just a hang up. Like I think it was more like she she just missed things, but like there was
Mhm.
literally, you wouldn't have known that like it wasn't as true as it was from
Yeah.
everything they gave her.
Well, and I
And
think
they made it a very intense situation. Like they made a
Yeah.
lot go on. And the fact that there was a baby in the background definitely was not helping anything.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
no,
your
I think that's the
kid-
reason why Grace
That was the
freaked
trigger.
out. Yeah, that was the
that's
trigger for
why,
Grace.
and I think that's why she's blaming herself. She's like, "Oh, I hear a kid, and everything else goes down." I'm like,
She's
honestly,
thinking of her own
It would be
child.
the same, but
Which,
it'd also be
so-
the same for me because I hear kid, and I'm like, "Wait, what? Help the kid! What's happening?"
I think I think anybody
So-
with a heart would be like that. Like
Yeah.
be like, where's the baby? Where's the kid? Even like we especially saw it with Grace and Judd just because they are new parents. Because
Mhm.
Judd was focused on the baby when they were in the house, and she was focused on the baby during the call, and then obviously after.
Yeah, and it definitely was not Grace's fault. None of this was Grace's fault. And
Right.
Not at all.
but she's gonna carry that for a while. And even Judd tells her, he's like, it's not your fault. And she's like, I just don't know who to be mad at. And I love Judd's line of, well, how about the SOB who turned you into a weapon? He's like,
I liked that.
Yeah.
it ain't you and it ain't Carlos. It was whoever on the other end of the line that killed them. And she also asked how Carlos handled things, and he's like, yeah.
Looking
Yeah.
like a lot like you right now, basically. That's what he said.
Yeah.
And I loved that because I loved how like he defended basically her and Carlos, because
Yeah.
like I feel like also going back to like Grace and Carlos's relationship, I think definitely Judd and Carlos's relationship is long. Like I feel like they've known each other for
Mhm.
quite a bit of time, and I
Yeah.
feel like we can really see that. And I mean, Judd would do that for anybody. He would defend anybody that
Right.
was going through this. Like we know
Oh, yeah.
that. So I just
Yeah.
really liked that. Like it really stood out for me.
Yeah, that was a big thing for me. I mean, and of course Grace is upset and all that stuff, but then she's like, oh yeah, realizing one of their friends was affected too, like in a big way. And so she's asking about him, and that also shows Grace's heart and always wants to care for others.
Yeah.
Both Grace and Carlos are heavily like that. Like
Yeah, which I think is why we've always wanted them to have scenes together and like do things together, because
Yes.
they are so much alike.
No, they are.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I love it. I love it. And I love how like the end of that scene leads us to the Tarlos loft, to
Oh,
having
yes.
Tarlos and Grace all in one scene. This is everything I didn't know I needed, but I'm so happy we got.
And the sarcasm from TK at the beginning was hilarious. Okay, so we get to the loft. Carlos is very aggressively going at the punching bag, and TK in the background looks like he's making a salad, which Ronan posted a picture of that and said that was the only thing that TK knew how to make. So I don't know how true that is, but we'll go with it.
I did not like that. Why I did not like that? Because then I'm like, when he posted, I was like, Ronan, please do not confirm that. Like, don't confirm that crazy fan theory that TK doesn't know how to cook. Hey, Eddie's learning how to cook. TK can do the same.
Exactly. So TK says, like, babe, I know you're going through it, but can you please tone down the rage punching just a little bit? And Carlos is like, I'm not rage punching. And then the doorbell rings, and TK's like, thank God, there's the bell. Round's over. You gonna get that raging bull?
Okay, wait. I just thought about this. So season 1, Carlos calls TK Tiger, and now the nickname in the fandom is gonna have to be Raging Bull.
Oh yes!
Oh my God.
I'm making that a thing
That brings so many
later.
other thoughts.
Well, they do have a black and white cow rug there in the front entry. So
The way in my mind right now, I'm just thinking about how I can put this information out there.
And Carlos cow eyes.
Just
Just saying.
Oh yeah, that's another one. All the nicknames. Okay, they have all the nicknames. Just saying.
So Carlos
yeah.
is like, I'm not raging, and then he answers the door and like casually is like, oh hey Grace.
Hey Grace, wait, what are you
He's,
doing
like,
here?
wearing his like sweaty shirt and just casually like, oh hey Grace.
Oh, he looks so damn hot.
Oh yes.
Carlos in
Oh,
this
yes.
episode.
Man, if he was about 10 years older.
And straight.
I
I'm
was gonna say and straight.
And straight, yes.
There's
So-
that little factor.
Yeah, so Grace Carlos invites her in, and she then notices TK making something to eat. So she's like, "Oh no, am I interrupting lunch?" And TK, another one of my favorite lines. He's like, "Oh no, this isn't lunch. He eats like 6 times a day."
I could see that. Is that yeah, I could totally see that. Like, oh yes, I love it.
The like glare Carlos gave TK was hilarious.
Oh, it was everything. Like,
Yeah. And then Carlos kind of asked Grace, if something happened, kind of what she's doing there, because he didn't, it was unexpected. She's like, "Yeah, Carlos, we got played. That's what happened. And I don't know about you, but I'm angry about it." And Carlos is like, "Yeah, I'm frustrated too." She goes, "Yeah, but I didn't say I was frustrated, Carlos. I said I was angry. I'm furious. I'm pissed off about it." And TK's like, "Oh, he's pissed, Grace."
Just TK.
I
his
loved
commentary.
that because I liked like him almost like speaking for Carlos,
Mhm.
defending him in a bit. I liked
Yeah.
that part. I liked how TK was part of the scene because when
Mhm.
these pictures first came out, we didn't know TK would be there. And then when Rafa did an interview,
Yeah.
we saw like we didn't see
A
like the
clip.
whole scene, but we saw an overlay as he was talking. And I was like,
Mhm.
wait, I see TK in the background. Yes, we win.
Yeah. Yeah. And and there was that brief moment where Carlos kind of glanced at TK like, "Quit sharing all my business."
Right?
Because he's like, not
Babe,
wanting
you're
to,
embarrassing me.
yeah, that too. And Grace is like, "Yeah, well, he should be. We were played for some fools, and a man is dead because of it." Carlos is like, "Yeah, I guess I'm kind of pissed off about that." And Grace is like, "You realize that wasn't your fault, right?" And Carlos, being Carlos, is like, "Yeah, that's what I keep trying to tell myself."
It can take a while for the guilt to go.
Yeah.
I also feel like both of them, but like we've seen Carlos kind of blame himself before,
Mhm.
and we've seen Grace do the same thing too. But like Carlos specifically, I'm thinking about the bad call episode when he
Yeah.
blamed himself over that. Yeah, like I go straight to that.
Right. And Grace is talking about how, someone took their power away by playing them like they did. And Carlos is like, "Well, what do we do about it?" And she's like, "Let's take it back." And she's like, "They should look into some things." And Carlos is like, "I'm on mandatory leave while they investigate," because obviously he was involved with
Right. That's
what happened. So he's got,
right.
they have to, that's policy. It's not just
Right.
for, it's normal. Like when there's an officer involved shooting or a death that involves an officer, it has to be investigated through IA and all that, just to make sure that they did the right thing. And Carlos is like, "Oh, they've, all that information is already with the APD detectives, and somebody from cyber is working on it." And she's like, "Yeah, but how many other cases and workloads do they have?" And it's kind of pointing out that they're very busy and it's going to take a while, and she doesn't want to sit around and wait to find answers.
Yeah.
She wants the answers because she needs to clear her conscience and solve the case.
Yeah, they are very similar, but they're also I feel like they're dealing with this very differently. Grace definitely wants to get right to it. She wants to look into it.
Mhm.
Where Carlos wants to be as far away from it as possible. He does not want to get into it. And that just shows like what like they both kind of went through the same thing, but they are also in different parts of all this.
And then Carlos brings up, he's like, "Well, I'm not a detective, I'm a patrol officer." And TK, I love TK's line, but I'm like, it's wrong. TK's like, "Yeah, says the guy who solved a kidnapping case. He actually solved 2, if you want to get clarified, because who did find TK and Tommy and Nancy when the ambulance was..."
True.
Okay, when people say that, I get very confused though, because I'm like, those are 2 different things. I also get really just like technical when people say kidnapping, because that's not kidnapping, that's abduction.
I understand that, but he technically solved that case too, and he was also he was suspended at the time.
Oh yeah, that's
Carlos
true.
has a bad habit of being suspended and then sorry.
I mean, when your boyfriend is missing, you're not gonna sit down and be like, "Oh well, oh maybe he'll come home."
Right.
But yes, he has solved very many cases, and that was before we even got like the whole Detective Carlos thing. Just
exactly. I think actually that was when some like fans I could hear like hinted like, "Oh, we should get a Detective Carlos," which would be nice, but I don't know if we'll get that. And Grace also reminds him that he's got rage, which is gonna push him to want to find answers. There was a brief moment where when Grace was talking about like losing the power, I had a moment of thinking about all those people that have gone through abusive relationships and like how their abusers usually take the power away from people they're abusing. And I'm like, I can see it. in a little bit, just that, Grace and Carlos are both in positions where they kind of have power. Carlos is a police officer. Grace is a, dispatcher who controls like who's going to what calls, and that power and comfort that they're used to was taken away from them. So, but I can also understand them processing differently. Like you said, like there's different but similar. They're grieving in different ways. Carlos just wants to be numb and take it out on the punching bag, which is, one way to get some of your thoughts out. But I don't know. This definitely was a good scene. I'm glad TK was in it and it wasn't just Carlos, because I think
TK helped. TK really did help.
Yeah, and it also shows like they can be domestic and they can be there for each other without being like all making out all the time.
Yeah, which I like because like I actually think the reason why I like Tarlos is like my comfort ship, I would say, is because it's not just like them making out all the time. Like, don't get me wrong, that's nice when we do get it, but I like that they have a very like good like emotional connection. I like they're more than just like hot boyfriends.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. They may have started out that way, as obviously season 1, that was kind of how they started, but they've grown into like a full-on relationship.
As they should.
Yeah. So we leave the loft and we go to the evening where Catherine and Owen are at a bar, which it's, to be honest, it kind of like this is like seemed like it threw a monkey wrench in it, or not a monkey wrench, just like a Prince Albert in a can. It's like a red herring into the episode.
Like the thing about these scenes, and honestly, when I look at them, I keep them very condensed because I really don't care about the details. That doesn't mean that I don't like Catherine. I'm not saying that, but a lot of people have mentioned this, how they don't really care about the politics behind the character. They kind of just want to know her, and I kind of agree with that. It's like we don't really need that, and if people don't like her, that's probably why, which I feel like a lot of people have told me that personally. And like these scenes, like I'm glad they were fine. Like they could have taken them out of the episode and I still would have loved the episode the same, but I also would have liked if they didn't hurt the episode is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And this was just such a minuscule thing, but I mean, we get typical Owen fashion. They're dancing at the bar. They go sit down. Somebody sitting nearby recognizes Catherine as somebody who works for the governor. Starts making some snide comments about her and her position and the governor, and she's just trying to ignore it. Owen's not happy about it because this guy's insulting his woman, if you want to get technical. So what does Owen do? He punches the guy. Thankfully,
you guys were hearing me, and I'm here like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it.
Oh, we were all like, well, we know it's.
I was the only one that had seen the episode once, so I was just like, oh, just wait.
From the moment they started showing that, I looked down and oh no, he's gonna do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah. Which got us into the conversation of how many times has Owen punched somebody? Okay, let's see. He punched Michelle's neighbor, and then he threw up out of shoes, and then
insulted Tree.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Billy.
Was that only once, or was it
I was
twice?
just about to say, I'm surprised that hasn't happened more than once.
I know, right?
For a brief moment, I thought it did.
I did too, not gonna lie. And then on this, I'm
like, oh wait, the lightning did it for him.
I'm just gonna repeat what I said when we were watching this. I was like, clearly anger management didn't work.
And then I think even Owen had a response about something about him punching. He's like, yeah, so my anger counselor or something says that, or I can't remember the line, but it was hilarious.
It was something about that.
So obviously she's pissed at Owen. So but he, I think, takes her home, and that's kind of left it at that, and we're like, okay, where is this going?
Yeah.
But before we get to that,
yeah, honestly, I didn't really care where that was going. This was the part of the episode I was just like, just give us Carlos and Grace. Like, it's fine that this storyline was in the episode. Yeah. But I was just kind of like, oh, it's whatever. Like, it was so minuscule.
Right.
See, what I liked was the scene after the whole punch thing, or the next scene that we get with Catherine and Owen. Is that directly afterwards, or the one in the car?
I think the one in the car is like right after this. I do like her like the one thing I'll give her is I like her being like speaking up for herself, being like, you didn't need to do that, like I can defend myself, or like
I
this.
didn't ask for a savior, that kind of thing. I thought she made
Yes.
some pretty good points. Like
Uh-huh.
honestly, I have kind of liked Catherine the most of the time. Like I don't
Same.
have a thing against the storyline or anything. In fact, part of me is like, okay, I'm actually interested to see where this will go. I think I'm one of the rare people on that, but I am interested to see where this goes.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just like her because there's just something very like admirable about her, but this like rose her in my esteem a little bit because she was like clearly she's like, yo, just let me take care of this. I take care of this all the time.
Right.
All right. I don't need a knight in shining armor. And I'm like, yes, girl.
That's what I
But
did
yeah.
like about it and stuff.
Yeah, I totally had a thought, and I think I get what Katie was saying earlier though about the political stuff. I think if we'd have
Yeah.
more episodes with her that didn't involve her job, it would be nice. Because
I
I'm
agree.
not,
I don't
yeah,
like
because
that part
I
of
want
it.
to get to know her as a person, not always about her job.
Also, just the fact of who and like what is what really like
Yeah.
doesn't make people happy, which I totally understand.
I get it. Like Florida and Texas are really screwed up right now, and their governors are pretty terrible. I'm just gonna say it like that. And clearly she, this is fictional, but she works for the Texas governor.
Mhm.
So there is that link. I will say people would not be complaining about her job or
Yeah.
about her job being brought up if she had any other job. So like I'm not going to say anything about that because if it was any other job, we wouldn't say that. However, like I get where people are coming from, especially with everything that's happening right now.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
it's like,
for me, it's yes, all of that. I think, it's very prominent right now in the news, but I was thinking more of just, I personally don't like talking politics in public.
I
So
agree.
just in general, I just don't like, regardless of who I'm with, I just don't talk politics. So I'm like, that storyline's like, not a big deal to me. But I think for me, a lot of people are like, Owen in the storyline. Owen is like the main character of the series. So there's going to be storylines about him. And I think we just all have a bitter taste in our mouth after the Gwen situation in season 2.
Probably.
So regarding him having a relationship, I hope it's a decent relationship because, we had Zoe in season 1 and that was kind of like a quick fling. Then Gwen came into the picture and was there for like a half a season. And it was mostly like the Gwen and Owen show with some 911 stuff mixed in.
True.
There was a lot of that. Yeah. And then her leaving because she was pregnant, not by Owen, that just left a really bitter taste in a lot of people's mouths. So then now seeing Owen dating again, it's like, is this even, like, how's this going to end up? Where I'm thinking, I'm like, is it actually going to end up with a decent relationship, or is this just going to be another fling?
I'm hoping there's a decent relationship, even if they don't last. Like, let's have been a decent relationship. I think part of the problem is I love what the writers do with Violet Lone Star, but I will say I'm not always fond of the way they choose to go with Owen's storylines, because whenever they decide to focus a storyline on him, it never winds up representing him in a very good light, which frustrates me because I really like Owen.
That's a good point.
I really do. And when he's not the main center of attention, or it's in some other scenario, so like a call, a TK situation, a fire fam situation, anything like that, he's quirky, he's funny, like he's a good guy. But when they decide to focus a storyline on him, I don't know, it's not always the greatest thing. And that's probably my biggest disappointment with the Lone Star writers, is that what the heck are you doing? Make up your mind.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next scene, which is Grace and Carlos.
Sounds good to me.
I think we'll enjoy talking about that. So Carlos shows up at the writer's house, and Carlos is like, he's got case files. He's like, yeah, my buddy in homicide slipped him some case files. I'm like,
can we meet him?
That's kind of not supposed to be doing.
Can we meet him? I want to meet this friend.
Can we meet him? Can we meet the friend? And he's like, oh yeah, they got everything, marked about the investigation and, like drug related, because they think it's drug related. And he's like laying it out on their table. And I'm like, his friend could get in trouble for giving him the case
Okay,
files.
I'm so unfazed about this because this happens in every single police
yeah.
show I watch.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it happens, and it's just like that is not the logistical thing that I spend most of my time. Like we all want the information, we all want like the details.
Right.
It's stuff like it's fine. It's
Mhm.
a show. We can deal with it.
Yeah. So they're kind of trying to figure out some of the details. Carlos is explaining like their top 3, I think, people that are
Yeah.
like could be suspects. And one of them actually has been known to do swatting calls in the past. And for those who don't know what swatting calls is, it's just basically where somebody calls and basically makes a fake 911 call to go to somebody else's house and cause problems with the other person. And it's usually sometimes it's like I've heard it can be back and forth where like somebody will help out one person and another person will help out somebody else. So it's like they try not to have it tie back to one person so it can't be traced. But that's kind of not true anymore because there's so many ways to trace things now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I love Grace's like, well, you could have led with that tidbit, Carlos, because he's like been going into all the like case information and stuff.
Which
and he's like,
he did go very detailed. Like he
He
said
did.
that like they suspected his ex-girlfriend, but she
Right.
was like sad about his death, so they didn't
Yeah.
like her for it. Then some
Mhm.
other guy that I think was like a rival dealer or something like that, but he was in lockup the night this happened, so it couldn't have been him. So they landed on the last guy, which was Mark, who had made the swatting calls
Mhm.
and stuff, which is yeah, Carlos just liking to lay out all the details. You gotta be like, yeah, that it's because he's a control freak. I'm surprised that didn't come up,
Wee bit.
but we love it. Like I love the
Right.
details. Like yes, give it to us. Like I was so entertained the whole time. I was like,
Mhm.
oh yes.
He's like, be in charge.
Oh yes. Okay, why were we just thinking of all the nicknames?
Ah.
Just saying.
They start listening to some tapes too, to try and figure out if they can like compare them to others. And they also find out that the calls were made from a payphone. And Carlos, being a young one, was like, I didn't know there's actually a thing anymore.
I think okay, see, I get what he is saying because I think the same thing. Like,
Oh yeah. Like I don't really think I've seen a payphone before. I've maybe seen one.
okay, I
Right.
saw them when I was a kid, but I haven't seen one in a while, and it's like, yeah, I feel you. I also want to backtrack a little bit because I do like the line when Grace was like, you could have led with that, and then Carlos just being like, well, you know, I like to set up the board, but before I utilize all the moving pieces, I just really like the way he said that.
Oh yeah. Which
Yeah.
actually kind of references Judd's next comment because Judd comes out of the back room and he's like, well, he's getting ready for work, and they kind of realize this person they thought was maybe going to be it was like that was a bust, and he asked if they tried the gaming angle, and Carlos is like, there's a gaming angle. And Judd mentions he's like that he saw a ton of like high-end gaming equipment set up in the living room of the house, and a streaming camera and everything. And Carlos is all confused, and he's like, you think someone would swat Mark's house over a video game? Judd.
Good.
People are insane.
Yeah, he's like, people talk all kinds of trash about rival streamers, and it gets pretty nasty, especially if you got a few thousand people watching you, but not when it's your boy though.
That's so typical.
I'm like, yeah, because we know Judd video chats and like probably streams games when he's playing.
And I like Grace's comeback because she's like, says the man that once threw a controller through our flat screen, and Judge just like, no, I told you it was a slip of my wrist, but and then Carlos is just so confused.
You can tell he doesn't know video game stuff,
which I love. Like that is a thing that needed to happen. Like I love it. Like I feel this, and like
Carlos does remind me of somebody who would be very interested in board games but not video games.
What does that remind me of myself just a little bit? I do like a good board game. I'm not gonna deny that. Like I love Carlos, especially like this part, because I love seeing him so confused. I don't know why. I love all the expressions on his face, being so confused about what the heck they're talking about, and trying to wrap his mind around it.
Yeah.
Like, it's everything, guys. It's everything.
And later when they're going through more and his face, and then when Grace all starts talking about it, it's like, oh yeah.
You know,
Grace
she
is a
hangs around
gamer
Judd
girl.
too much.
Oh yeah. But before we get more on with that, we get Paul at the 126. He's back, but he's on light duty, desk duty, technically.
Yes, I loved it.
And he's like, not going quickly back out to the field, which is understandable. And Owen comes in and he notices Owen's hands, which Paul notices everything.
Yeah, before that though, he was organizing his spices in alphabetical order and stuff. I really liked that he wasn't going like whatever after everything that happened in the last episode. I'm glad he wasn't like going right back into it. Like,
right, me too.
He was kind of easing into it. Like
thank you.
Good point.
That was handled.
Right, and he was doing it by alphabetical order, and then Owen comes in. He's like, "No, I had those by taste profile." I'm like, or he was like combination profile or whatever to like what go best with each other, which I can understand both ways.
I feel like, I mean, the way I have my family organizes spices, there's no organization there, so I almost feel like alphabetizing them would be helpful. But also taste profile, like I can understand these go with these dishes, organizing them that way, but I'm like,
I just have like the 5 spices that I actually use the most in the front, and everything else is in the back.
Yeah, honestly, that's how mine are. It's like how much you use them, so there might be like 10 right where you can see them, and the ones you don't use that often are just shoved somewhere else.
Exactly. Yeah, and then Paul notices Owen's hand is all beat up and starts like questioning him about if it's broken, what happened, and Owen's not giving him a straight answer.
I bumped it.
I bumped it. And so Paul calls Tommy over to look at his hand. And then they both realize that he's from punching someone. And Paul's response is spot on. He's like, "Cat, please don't tell me Billy Tyson is walking around with a black eye right now."
I really liked it because we have been talking about like a week ago, like, oh man, we haven't like seen or heard Billy, any mention of Billy like recently. And then this comes out.
Yeah, exactly. And then Owen was like, "No, I was defending Catherine," and he explains everything that happened. And then, how Catherine reacted. Tommy's like, "Well, I kind of agree with her." And I mean, in a way, I do too. Like, Catherine was telling him not to get involved and she can handle it. And he wasn't letting her handle it.
Oh, yes. Like, I agree. I completely agree. Like, he took it over the top, which, I mean, he does do that. He has a habit of doing that sometimes. No shade is being thrown. I'm just saying, like, it's part of who he is. And sometimes there's nothing wrong with it. Sometimes I'm like, I can agree with the other person.
Yeah. And then we move on to kind of the secondary storyline for the episode is there's a biological attack at the Capitol. So Catherine receives some flowers, which Tommy had advised Owen during the shift to give her some flowers and chocolates as just like an apology of being going against her the night before. But we don't know if Owen actually sent them. But she receives flowers and a card and opens up this envelope, and a puff of white powder comes at her, which she then thinks was a biological attack. So she calls 911, which the 126 responds. Naturally, it's big thing. They have to seal off. Everybody's in hazmat suits. And of course, at the time, Owen doesn't know who got powder on her.
Right.
Until afterwards, or, until he's going in.
Right. Yeah. Somebody had said who it was, and he was just like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. What did the note say?
I can't remember, and I didn't take note of it.
Toxic something.
No, that was what happened later.
I think you're like, no, the note actually read like, "Now you're really toxic" or something.
Oh yeah. That was it. There we go.
Yeah.
Me and my memory decided to come through.
Yeah, go Grace.
You could tell how much I like took in these scenes because I like.
Yeah. So Tommy, Judd, Marjan, and Owen went into the Capitol to start sealing off the room they were in, to kind of secure it so they could clean, take care of her, get the material to the incident commander so they can start testing it to figure out what it is, because if it's certain, if it's like anthrax, they can treat it. If it's ricin, they can't really treat it. So they have no idea what it is. And Mateo and TK are still outside, and the police start passing around a picture of this kid who delivered the flowers to her, and he was a new person. Nobody had known him.
He was a temp, so
yeah,
like
so he didn't
nobody
have
knew
a
who he
badge or
was.
credentials. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just funny. Well, it wasn't funny, but Mateo finds him and just starts yelling out that, like, you know, terrorist. I'm just like, I don't know, just something about the scene kind of like gave off weird vibes. Like, I get it, it's a serious issue, but I don't know. I just felt weird about it.
Yeah, it just seemed wrong the way he was yelling and what he was saying, like, calling out the kid. The kid's like, what? Because he had just come back from getting
coffee or something.
Coffee. And then like the police tackle him, and then he starts having a nosebleed like while he's being interrogated. And then he like passes out, which is not good.
Yeah, so you know, TK runs over there as he should, and then like he's telling Tommy about it, and she tells him to get away from him and to make sure everyone stays back. And Owen tells Mateo to cordon off the patient because you know, it could have been the same thing, that like he could have been exposed like Catherine. You don't know the situation. It could get real bad, and obviously you don't want something happening to TK. I mean, he was already hurt enough this season. Let's just put that out there.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and Joe, was it Judd? I felt it seemed odd because like with all the stuff they had to do, and like I know they had to get Catherine into a decontamination shower, which Marjan helped with, and they had to seal off, like completely make the room airtight so none of the particles could get out. And Judd's like out there waiting to figure out, like, because they're doing the tests on site to see if they can figure out what it is. Turns out to be cornstarch, which was.
I knew something like that was gonna happen. Not necessarily cornstarch. Like I wasn't like, oh my god, it's gonna be cornstarch. I was more like, I kind of felt like it was gonna be like a hoax. Like it wasn't actually gonna be like something real, just because like, are they really gonna do that?
Yeah, which right.
Like, it was just I don't know. I just had a feeling that it was going to be like a freak out. Like, obviously you should freak out. You don't know what it is, and you should test it, and you should do all these things. But I knew it was going to basically be nothing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Of course they're, using that as drama, which is understandable. But
yeah, it wasn't like overplayed drama, which I really liked. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Scenes, like if you took them out of the episode, they really weren't like, they didn't disrupt the other storylines, which is what my fear was going into the episode, and just hearing what we were going to be dealing with. It wasn't like made into too much drama, which sometimes they can do, and I sometimes hate it, but like it was good, done very well, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. I mean, and it was resolved well. She did. I think Owen asked. He's like, so what are you doing for after work or something like that?
Oh my god, yeah. I was just like, okay.
She admitted she thought the flowers were from him, and he's kind of like, I was going to send them to you, kind of. He didn't say that, but I'm sure he was thinking that.
Yeah, like that would definitely be something he would be thinking though.
And then we go back to Carlos and Grace. They're still at the writers. They're watching live streams of the guy who died playing games. I can't remember the name of it, the game, but Judd did. Judd recognized the game.
Oh, I remember. Oh, it was called Dread Ops, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. And Carlos is like, I can't believe people stream themselves doing this, and actually people watch. And I was like,
Carlos,
I'm guilty of watching.
Okay, even I've watched, because I know people have done them, so I've been curious and I've watched them. So even I actually like the one thing I did used to watch a lot on YouTube is like people playing The Sims. Like that is the
Me
one thing
too. I still do.
I mean, I do every once in a while, but I don't as much as I used to. But yeah, that's like the only thing I can really say I actually do watch. But
Yeah,
yeah,
there's now
See,
there's go ahead.
I only watch it when I'm gaming myself and I'm stuck.
Mhm.
So I'll go watch someone who did play the game to figure out what the heck I'm supposed to do.
that makes
But
sense.
other than that, I just find it supremely boring to watch other people.
Okay, yeah.
Nothing against people that do like it. That's just my own
Mhm.
personal thing.
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, this is boring.
I
Also,
yeah.
gamers. Speaking as a gamer, as like a fairly minor game, but as a gamer, gamers are weird. Okay.
Yeah, I can totally see that.
So yeah.
Yeah, there's three games right now that I play a lot. It's Settlement Survival, The Sims, and City Skylines. And I do watch the videos of the creators on YouTube all the time. And it's, for me, it keeps me inspired to keep playing because there's always something else I could do in the city that I learn about. So I feel like even though it can be a little monotonous to just keep watching their streams over and over again or watching different ones they put out, but it's entertaining, and it's something I like to do in my downtime. So if I can learn more and like learn how to do things, so like you, Grace, you know, if there's something you don't know or can't get past the level, and for me it's like figuring out how to build a university in City Skylines because I don't know how to do it yet, or you know, that's
Right,
I
that
do
makes
know how to
sense.
do it now, but
Yeah, like when I'm getting killed or something in a game.
right.
And I'm
Yeah.
just like, someone help, please. I don't know what to have.
Yeah,
What's happening.
yeah,
Or
I
I
have
can't
done
figure out
that
a way
before.
to, or I can't figure out how to advance next level. All the games I play are Star Wars. I play
Cool.
Lego Clone Wars. I haven't started Complete Saga yet, but I'm going to.
Mm.
Jedi Fallen Order and Battlefront 2. I
Yeah.
can't figure out Squadron, so I haven't played that. And those, particularly Fallen Order and Lego Clone Wars, there are times when I just get so stuck.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm still getting to know the game. So if I'm still new at it and I can't figure out how it's going. But yeah.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have YouTube videos like that back when I was playing like Mario and Luigi and Super Mario Brothers and getting stuck at the saving the princess levels.
Yeah.
It's dating me, I know. But they're continuing to watch, and Carlos is talking about the trash talk in the comments, and they start cross-referencing some of the comments to see if they can find out like if certain people are like rival streamers just like commenting just to like build drama, or if it's actually like people that don't like him. And Grace suggests they watch more, and Carlos is like, and lose a few brain cells in the process. And that was Grace.
And that.
Yeah.
And I love as Carlos is like writing down notes on like a notebook, and he's like, what's a Smurf ass bitch?
Well, him being like, so and so says he's a Smurf ass bitch, and Carlos, what's a Smurf ass bitch? And Grace being like, somebody who plays games under their own skill level. It's not cool at all. I don't even know how they allow it. And Carlos is just looking at her like, huh? How do you know that?
How do you know that?
And Grace is just like, Judd, he was telling me about it. And Grace is
And I was
like,
like,
Carlos is like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And they do find this one troll who they like look him up or whatever, find videos of him, and then they find one the day that Mark died. And then they find another one of him like talking total smack, and then like him like losing or whatever. But he had this thing he said, which I didn't connect until the second time watching. I was like, oh, that makes sense, where he keeps saying like God's plan, and Carlos is just like cute catchphrase, and Grace is just like, yeah, that's one word for it. I loved that part. Like that was so minuscule.
That's not what it meant in the
episode.
Bible when they said God's plan. Just saying.
Yeah,
Just to be clear.
just to clarify,
Oh,
yes, we but that moment, I don't know why, I just really like it, and it was so minuscule for the episode, but like just them talking about that, I was like, oh yes, love it.
Yeah, so they slowly start to piece some things together. They find his troll and realize that there was somebody, they were both playing a certain game together, and one of them was supposed to
so like the guy the other guy that was like trolling, he had been playing a game, and then the video that they watched, like the last one or the second to last one, no, the second to last one, the guy Mark, he had been in, they must have been in the same game or whatever, and so he goes to shoot him and he ends up winning, like Mark does, and so he's like, he must have been watching my stream, blah blah blah. And so the next video he posts is like,
I'm just like, I admired Mark for that. I'm like,
yes,
oh,
good job.
Yeah.
Like, and so like the next video is kind of like him being like, I'm gonna get revenge on him, and basically admitting to swatting, which it's just like,
he's basically saying that he knows how he can find him and knows where he is, and he can send, you know, the wrath down on him. And which Carlos is like, let's, you know, they use his social media and stuff to figure out what his first name is, so they can
well, his full name,
so they can find him. And then Carlos is like, oh yeah, we can get a warrant. And then he's like, I'd like to be there when this goes down. And I think when they do find out where the guy lives, Grace is like, I hope you plan on getting on a plane for that.
Well, she was like, well, let me check, unless you're cool with getting on a plane. And Carlos is like, why, where is he? And then we get to the arrest. Oh my god. The police was in. We see Athena, LAPD in LA. Okay, he had to be in LA.
Yeah.
Which I didn't really connect how this is all gonna happen. But it was seeing Athena.
I hadn't even really thought of the fact that
I didn't either
yet. But we were supposed to see her in this episode, so like, you know, it was like, okay,
right.
Where is she? There she is.
Yeah. So here comes Athena. Her and the SWAT team busted on the door of this guy's apartment, arrests him and the girlfriend, who the girlfriend squeals pretty quickly.
Of course.
Oh yeah.
You know, and they're like, well, you know, and they're like, we didn't do anything. Of course, everybody who gets arrested says that.
I loved Athena ripping the headphones off his head so fast.
Yes.
Like,
because he didn't have a single clue that they were even there.
No, idiot. He's such a dumbass. Like, I just got, like, it was just like, the whole thing that fathoms me is like, he admitted to a crime on camera, has it out there. Like, what a dumbass.
So yeah, because anybody who streams and knows gaming knows that stuff is like, once it goes out there, it doesn't disappear. Like, it's gonna be able to be found.
Yeah, and the way they showed it, and the way they showed it, it was on like his page,
right?
Like, it was his. Like, it wasn't like somebody just recorded it. Stuff. It dumbass. That's all I gotta say.
And after he gets arrested, Athena FaceTimes Carlos and Grace, so they get this like quick FaceTime with it. And I was like, oh my god, we needed this. I mean, I would have loved to have them there, but it's just so good. So Athena explains that the girlfriend flipped on him fast, that, you know, that did happen, that she was the one that made the call, and they'd used a recording of a baby from the internet to make the sound of the baby.
Makes a lot of sense.
And they're like, you know, we really appreciate it. It means a lot to them, you know, obviously, because for them, you know, Carlos had been on mandatory leave, Grace took some time off. It really affected them, and to have this case now closed in a way was good. And, you know, Athena was like, you guys did all the work, you don't have to thank me. And, you know, she's like, I just showed up for the fun, detective. And Carlos is like, I'm not a detective, actually. She's like, you're kidding. She's like, you could have fooled me. He's like, nope, just a patrol officer. And she's like, there's no such thing as just a patrol officer, son. Folks in Austin are lucky to have the both of y'all looking out for him. And Grace is, listen, if you're ever in town, we'd love to meet you in person. And she's like, well, I would like that. And it was like, oh my god, we've needed this. Can you imagine Grace and Athena working together? Like, Athena, we need this.
I could care less. Any else for the 118 goes back to Texas. Get Athena to Texas. I need the follow-up. I need it. Yes. Like, man. Please.
I would love it if Athena has a case that ends up going to Austin.
Wait. I love it. I love it already. Like, can this happen?
I mean, they did it one way.
Please, you need to hear this.
Yes. Please. That's one way, you know, hey, mini crossover, which actually I really like this, because this is how often crossovers happen, and I think is really cool that a certain character in the franchise can just pop up in the other, show. And in this case, it can't happen too often because
Right.
of, them living in, or, being hosted in different cities.
Right.
But, Carlos picked up the phone. They probably called the LA Police Department, explained the situation, got in touch with a sergeant, talked to Athena, told him what had happened, and she was like, oh yeah, let's get on this case, because obviously Carlos wouldn't have jurisdiction in Los Angeles to do anything.
Yeah, I mean, he could be there and he could assist, but he couldn't like majorly be in charge of it, which he wouldn't anyways.
Right.
But it could be done. And it was executed perfectly.
It was. I loved it.
Yeah.
So it would be really cool to have like somebody we know that has like maybe connections in Los Angeles, like have somebody go visit them. And they like in Chim, when Chim was in Boston and he was helping the woman give with the baby, and then the paramedic showed up and it happened to be his, former coworker. Just little things like that. Like if we had a Boston 911 or something,
Not my mind be like,
I give the writers any more ideas. Not right now.
I agree. I'm just
yeah. So after the discussion, Grace spots the suspect behind Athena as they're walking out. She's like, "Oh, can we talk to him really quick?" And Carlos is kind of giving her this look like, what are you gonna do?" Like, I just want to say hey.
She's like, I just want to say hey. And so Athena's like, she's like, I can arrange that. So Athena then, like, after like Grace is just like, I just want to say hey. Athena's like, say it, like telling him like, say hello to my friends Grace and Carlos. They're the reason your dumbass is in handcuffs today, and they didn't have to get off their couch to do it. And then Grace just says like he had to admit that he had her fooled. He had her question herself for the first time. He was clever, and she didn't think they'd be able to catch him. And he says, "You got lucky." And oh my god, Grace is just like, oh no, it wasn't luck. I can tell you what it was though. It was God's plan.
God's
bitch.
plan.
I'm
just so there. Like, oh my god,
good.
Oh my god. Okay, so fun fact, or I guess behind the scenes of this part. So the night of this episode, TJ and I were talking about how this is our favorite line. And so we're like, man, we need to make this a TikTok audio and like a Reels audio. I was like, oh, I'm all over that. So I did it. And I'm like, hey, if you want to use it, you can just tag me. Yeah, we made this like into a thing, a real thing.
I love it. I'm not a huge
so
fan of using the B word, but it got the point
in this
across.
scenario.
See,
And Carlos is there just cackling.
I know.
Like he's got his hand to his mouth, laughing so hard.
Like, bird.
He's coughing. He like laughs and then he coughs because like, and then Athena is like laughing and
she's like, I like her.
And Carlos is like, me too.
Yeah.
It's funny because everyone after this was like, yeah, Grace has earned like swearing more on the show, and I'm like, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, that was such an awesome wrap up to that scene, and I think it was seeing Carlos and Grace work together. I would have loved to see Carlos at one point holding Charlie, but that can come later.
Yeah,
if we had to make that sacrifice, I'm happy with the rest of it.
Yes, but I love that Athena popped in, and she was doing double duty because this was the same night that 911 came back. So she had 911 on, Fox, and then right after was Lone Star. So we got some extra Athena in the episodes or that night.
Yeah, and I loved like this. Yeah, honestly, best scene of the episode, but also like just the whole interaction because Carlos is just like, call me, like. Yeah, and Grace covering her mouth like, oh, this whole
they're
thing.
so proud of each other. They're just egging each other on by now.
Yeah. And it could have gone so many different ways, but it went perfectly. I'm props to the writers of 911 Lone Star. This was awesome.
Oh yes. Honestly, this goes on the favorites list. I gotta say that.
Yes, this is one of my favorite episodes, I have to admit. So our final scene or final, kind of storyline of the episode, Catherine and Owen end up making up, but they're at Owen's house, which, by the way, where the hell is Buttercup?
We haven't seen Buttercup like most of the season, and I'm like, come on, why are you hiding him?
I mean, if he goes everywhere with Owen, he should be at the house. So why is
Like,
he
what
not there?
Like, is he on a vacation or something? Like, please do tell.
He's on a vacation. I like that.
Like, there has
Oh
to
my
be some
God.
logical reason
Right.
for him not to be
Tell me
here.
he's staying with Marshawn or something. Like,
Marsha
Yeah.
steals Buttercup. There's an abduction. Kaiser's abduction.
No. And so they make up. They decide to stay in, and they decide to go to the bedroom, and they go upstairs. It's a little kind of awkward, and they, I guess, turn the light on, and on this wall is written "toxic pig" in what looks like to me blood.
The bed was
and then,
wet.
and the bed was
and
wet.
then the bed, and they pull
then-
back the covers, and there's.
And my
slaughtered
first
pig.
reaction was, I swear to God, that better not be Buttercup.
Okay, because I warned you guys about that, because TJ and I and then one of my other friends all had the same reaction. We were like, I swear, because I literally started crying the first time I watched this, because I was like, I swear, like, it's not that I thought they were gonna do that, it was just my emotional response, because I was like, I swear to God, like, please, because shows have not necessarily like this, but like I've seen like dead dogs or whatever, and I'm like, please do not do that, please do not mess with me.
See, I never thought that it was Buttercup. Like, it crossed my mind on the possibility that, like, oh, I'm sure some people might think that's what it is. But like, I never thought it was Buttercup, because I knew that if they did that, people include, I would have stopped watching the show.
Oh, I
Simply
would,
because I would have been so mad, because that is traumatizing as fuck.
Right.
And I have seen stuff like this in crime shows before, but Lone Star is not a crime show, despite the contents of this episode. They're not a crime show. They don't specialize in homicide, murders, anything like that. That's not what they do. And they literally, their realm is not in that. So I absolutely would have quit watching. Forget everything.
yeah, I didn't think
I
they
would
would
not
do that,
stop
but
it.
it was just like my emotional response being like, oh, please, dear God, no.
What I was glad though is that Katie, you warned us beforehand that there was a dead animal here. And that is when like the brief thought crossed my mind of like, not Buttercup, because Katie would have been more upset. It would have been
you guys
right.
don't be too well.
You did warn us, and then you're like, my friend and TJ and I all had a different reaction. She's like, and so she's like, I want to see it, and then you said, I guess I said the same thing you guys were thinking, and then Grace is like, I didn't really think it was Buttercup, but anyway, so on the bed when they pull the blankets back is literally a dead pig covered in blood in Owen's bed, which is just disgusting. Ugh.
Yeah, I don't like. This is why I like don't really think about these scenes much. It's not that I don't love it, and I'm like, why? Like, that's my whole thing is why.
Yeah, well, you can tell it's leading up to what's coming up in episode 312, which we will talk about in a minute. But
I mean, granted, I wasn't too faced with this, because I grew up a farm girl. I have seen many a dead pig in my time. Okay, not typically brutalized like this, but I have seen this many times. It's nothing I hadn't seen before. It was the kind of thing where like, oh, poor pig, why did you do that to the pig? But like,
that's,
you know, my receptors are a little different, because I'm just like, oh, I'm kind of used to this.
I don't like seeing a squirrel dead on the road, so that just shows who I am as a person.
Oh, I am such a compassionate person for animals, and that's why I'm like, no, why the pig have to die?
Right, exactly.
For anyone who didn't grow up like seeing this kind of thing, though, like, I can only imagine what that was probably like if you weren't really expecting it.
Yeah.
So I will say the message on the wall did clue me into what was under the blanket, because I'm like, toxic shit, it's gonna be a pig.
Right.
I was like, am I right?
Which gets me, because Owen is not a police officer. Pig is usually the derogatory term for a cop.
I just feel, knowing what happens, that like
they was just using pig as a derogatory term in general.
Exactly.
Like, oh, you're such a pig.
I mean,
Though usually it's used for slobs, and when Owen is not a slob.
No, he is not. His son is.
A little bit.
Wait, that just sparks something like that needs to come up. Carlos, you're such a slob. to like Carlos TK.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
sorry, I just thought of that.
Okay.
Anyhow,
So, like, in the long run, this episode was amazing. I thought it was super good.
absolutely.
You know, I loved having Carlos and Grace work together, like actually be on screen together, in the same room, you know, not just on the calls together.
Yeah, I do want to throw hands. People are like, this episode wasn't that great. How was it not that great? It was like a
It was
million out of
freaking
10.
awesome. And we got Athena.
It was so good.
We got Athena, we got
yeah.
Carlos, we got Grace, we got Tarlos, which we hadn't gotten in a few episodes.
Mhm.
The other stuff was very minimal. It was mostly
Yep.
focused on Carlos and Grace and that
Mhm.
kind of story, which is
Yep.
all what we all wanted and cared
Yep.
about the past like forever, 3 seasons.
Yeah.
It was everything. Like
Yeah.
honestly, like this
I
is
do-
like very much a favorite.
Yeah, I do feel bad that Carlos was part of why the guy died. So I do feel bad that he will have to carry that around. But I think Carlos will get through it, especially now that they've solved what happened. And I'm definitely interested in where this toxic pig storyline with Owen is going. But there was minimal enough scenes with Catherine and Owen to really bother me. Not that it would bother me. It's just it happens. But definitely I was super happy to see all the Grace and Carlos scenes. Yes, I'm glad we got the little bit of Tarlos, just the domestic part of it, of them being at home together.
That's why I love it.
We don't have to have them making, like we said earlier, we don't have to have them making out just to enjoy them. So like, hey, they're together, and TK's doing his thing, Carlos is doing his thing. That's how people cohabitate. So
oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Like, yeah.
I did love this episode. I don't get why people say it's bad. The hell,
Bad
are we watching
taste.
2 different shows? Like, are we watching
Yes.
two-
Yeah.
Right.
Like, are we watching the same show? But like,
No, it was such a good episode, and I'm gonna keep mine short because I think my sex addiction is kicking in right now. But no, but it was good, and I just love that we got Carlos and Athena. Like,
mhm.
all of it was good.
And that was a very unexpected thing. We didn't find out until a few days beforehand that she was going to be there. It was like kind of a last minute drop.
oh yeah. Like my reaction to it was like, because like I found out while I was at work, and like I don't usually check my phone, but it was the nighttime, so I could check my phone a little bit more. So I check it and I just see Athena is going to be on Lone Star, and my response is, huh?
Right?
So then I get this article and I'm like, oh, because I thought it was a joke, because I was like, where did this information come from?
Right.
Is this real? Is this legit? It was yeah.
So what did TJ and the other fans think?
Yeah, TJ and I talked extensively about this episode, even days
bet.
after it happened, per usual, but also more especially. So TJ said, oh my God, I loved it. I wasn't thinking that the death would be a knife to the neck, nor would I think it was a crackhead. I love that the show is still hinting at Detective Reyes. I swear to God, I thought Buttercup was dead in the bed, like I said, guys. So Lone Star was about to be canceled. Oh, he's right about that. The Catherine scene really didn't care much for, except seeing TK doing his job. Exactly. Also, like there have been articles that came out about this and Detective Reyes and being like, yeah, we'll see. We're not gonna do that. And I'm just like, then why was it brought up? Like, I get this is a first responder show, but they can have Carlos, they could put that little tidbit in there, like, and it still work. Like, I can think of multiple shows that have detectives that are also patrol officers.
Yeah, I think, Tim Minear was talking in an article, and he was saying that because 911 and 911 Lone Star are not really detectives themed shows, like they aren't like procedural cop shows, that having a detective wouldn't necessarily fit the show, because it's a detective's not really considered a first responder. It's more of secondary.
But they
can
play
make it
around
work
with it. Yeah, they can make it work. That's just an excuse, and that's all I could say on that.
I'm like, so what are you saying? Carlos is gonna like go to a sergeant, which I think he'd be terrified to do that.
I feel like
Yeah.
he's better off being a detective at that point.
He's so
Absolutely.
detail oriented. He's detective material. And I
Oh,
think
yeah.
Tim Minear also said in that same interview that he would almost think of him going to become a Texas Ranger.
I don't like that.
No.
I don't
do
want
not
that.
like that.
I don't want that because then he's just going to be in the shadow of his dad.
I don't like that. Like, either keep
Exactly.
him a patrol officer or make him a freaking detective. I'm so passionate about this to the point where I'm like, just do it already. Like, if we would have never, like, I wouldn't have ever thought about it if they didn't mention it earlier this season, like in episode 5 when it came up. I would have never, like, it would have never crossed my mind. Like, honestly, I'm being quite honest that, like, yeah, like, I wouldn't have thought about it. Like, come on. So other thoughts. A lot of people like domestic Tarlos, which same.
Yep.
Like, that was everything. Give it to us more. Don't be shy. And like I touched on earlier, a lot of people don't like, people just want to know Catherine for Catherine. I get it. Like I don't necessarily hate her, but if they had cut like this little part about it, I would have liked it better. Also, I don't get where people are like, they focus so little on Carlos, Grace, and Athena. Like, yes, Athena was only in like maybe 2-3 minutes of the show, but what do you think she was going to be in like all 43 minutes? That's just not realistic. Like, she's in 911, she has other things to do. Like, they can't just put her in like this much of the show and stuff with scheduling, which is why it was a mini crossover. And also, Carlos and Grace's storyline was not any bit small. So when people say that, I'm very confused. Like, did we watch
me
the same
too.
show? Did we watch the same show? Like,
did I? Yeah, I'm like, is that the same episode I watched? Because that's not what I got out of it.
Yeah, and also I like asking you guys for your theories for the next episode. Like, that's always entertaining. A lot of people think that something's gonna happen with Catherine. She's gonna be like, and a lot of people, which I think this did kind of cross my mind a little bit. People say the gamer thing is definitely gonna come up again because like he's not gonna just like sit back. Like, they want to get revenge. And a lot of people have some interesting theories about Carlos, which I will share after we talk about the promo, because that's when it makes most sense.
Yeah, so speaking of the promo, the first promo that we got was Owen and Marjan are at an art gallery talking to Sadie from the first part of the season. She's back, and they're asking, you remember Deputy Griffith? And she's like, it's kind of hard to forget someone who threatened to kill you. And Owen says that he got out. So Marjan's at the 126. She's saying the guy is clearly a murderer. Owen is, he's realizing that somebody has a beef with him. So Owen has a stalker, which I'm starting to piece together a few things.
I am too.
And Owen's in his office talking to Marjan and saying he's dangerous. So I think they're talking about Griffith, which I think is the stalker.
He is a stalker.
Marjan sees him at the grocery store, which is not good. Probably stalking her too, because she was a big part of what happened in up in the backwoods. Then there's a car explosion, and this Deputy Griffith gets into the back of Owen's car with Catherine in the passenger seat, and she's like, oh my god. And it looks like there's another house explosion, and then somebody's carrying someone. In the second promo, we see one different scene.
Yeah, all the rest is the same.
Yeah, all the rest is the same except Carlos is collapsing on the floor. Which,
when that came out and people were posting that around Twitter, I was like, people were like, oh my god, this happened in that promo. I'm like, you can't say that happened in the first promo, because I literally watched that 100 times and it's not in there. There was a second promo that had been
there's a second one that came out.
And I'm just like, when that happened, I was like, what? Right. My heart.
Exactly. Yeah. And there have been some promo photos come out of Amy Acker, which is Catherine, and then TK and Carlos at...
Nope, it's Sadie.
That's what I thought. People are like, oh, it's Amy Acker. And I'm like, no, that looks like Julie Benz.
Okay.
Is that who it is?
Okay, Catherine is a blonde. Sadie is a brunette. Thank you.
I was like, no, that's Sadie.
Are you blind? Are you blind?
I know. I was like, no, that looks like Julie Benz. And I've seen Julie Benz in numerous shows. I know what she looks like.
I literally forgot what Sadie looked like. So I'm just here like, who's the woman with TK here?
Yeah, so it's TK and Carlos, Julie Benz, which is Sadie's character, and they're at the loft, which is awkward. Like, why would they be at the loft, or she be at the loft?
Okay.
So unless they like Carlos and TK are protecting her,
probably. Okay,
you know.
here's the thing: people are so like suspicious about that, but it's like, okay, listen, this guy probably, if he can figure out where Owen lives, he can definitely figure out where she lives. Also, they
Right.
should protect Marjan too, because he's about to get the three of them. And like, I feel like the reason why she's there is probably because like of what I just said. Like, he probably knows where she lives, so she needs like a safe place to go. But what terrifies me is like he can figure out, it seems. But like, yeah, once we saw the sheriff and once we saw the promo, I was like, okay, he's the stalker they've been referring to, which I was like, who the heck would stalk Owen like at this point? Like, what the heck?
And then so what Carlos is wearing in the promo photos is the same thing he's wearing when he collapses on the floor. So there's so many different options as to what happens.
See,
I don't even want to say what I speculate because there's too many options.
Yeah, although like I think some of the options can be thrown out because of bullshit, because some of them are just like I think everyone's pretty much saying the same three things. Like, my first initial reaction was like, when I saw it, was like, he's definitely like holding on to things that happened in this past episode, so it's maybe like more like mental. And also, I know Rafa had said that like this is gonna stay with Carlos for a while, so that's potentially partially why I was thinking that. And then everyone else is like saying like either Carlos was drugged or like he was attacked, which there's no visible information to go off of that, so I'm not sure about that.
I
So
just
we have
saw
no
a couple
idea.
things saying people going, "Oh, we had a heart attack. Oh, we had a stroke." Because I'm like,
he's like 28 years old.
People are saying that. That's crazy.
Oh my god. I get it can happen, but Carlos, no.
That
he
man
is very fit. Like, yes, they would not have him have a heart attack. Have y'all literally forgotten we just had Paul have that happen? They would not follow the same line. That's not how you create storylines, y'all.
You don't copy and paste.
Again, unless there is some sort of clot in his brain or something. He's like 28 years old. He's not about to go have a stroke.
And I know there was a scene, I like one of the pictures showed, I think TK at one of the island in the kitchen with some food maybe taking out of a bag. So maybe they had food delivery. So then I'm like, well, did Carlos get poisoned? Because and if Owen Stalker is going after Owen, what's to say he's not going after his son as, retaliation?
This seems familiar. 212.
Right?
Just saying, guys, like, it does seem very suspicious, but like I'm still very excited for it, although the Carlos stuff did make me a little uneasy for a good day. I was like, my heart was racing.
So what's crazy is, we have 312 and then there's a break for a week. So then we have 313, which is the one that Ronan has been teasing for months about it being super Tarlos heavy.
Yeah, well,
and so
I mean, it feels like months, but I think it's been maybe like a month or a couple weeks.
His teasing gets really tense sometimes.
I get it. I feel the same way, but I'm just like, he's definitely been teasing an episode, but he hasn't said what episode it was, but he's been teasing it like, first it was a 308. Well, first, when the season, before the season even started, it was like, the first 4 episodes or the first couple episodes. Thought it was 308, but we didn't know it was 308 until a little bit. Then it was like, there's more. And I'm like, what? How can there be more?
And then so we'll have the break, which will be interesting, and there's a possibility of a Ronan Rafa live Instagram live before 313.
Please. God, do it when I can actually watch it. I'm real upset.
I'm here
because I already have a feeling I won't be able to, and I'm like, oh.
I know. I hope I'm not at work when they do it. I'm hoping they do it on Sunday and not Monday, because if they do it Monday, I definitely will be at work. But
I probably will be either way. If it is during work, I'll just go to the freezer for a few minutes.
Probably the same, but I'll probably be at work.
Oh yeah, well, we're almost all on the same page, but we'll see either way.
Thankfully, we have some awesome fans who have been recording that stuff, and they're pretty good about saving the lives anyways. So somehow we will see it. But I'm just excited to get one. We've needed one.
Yeah. But I just have to say last thing. Rafa and Sierra carried this episode. They killed this episode. And if you
Yes, they
haven't
did.
seen their live, which I haven't watched the whole thing yet, but I plan on it, you should definitely check it out. She has it on her page, like under videos. I just had to throw it out there because I absolutely
Yes.
love them. Like love them as
And it was
them.
a shock.
Love them
Like,
as
that
Grace
they
and
did that.
love them as Grace and Carlos. God, I almost said
Yes.
like
I was really surprised, but like I was glad they did one. That was really cool.
I know. I got the notification when I was at work and I was like, why?
Yeah. Like, why are you at work?
Trust me, if I couldn't have been there, I would have.
Yes. So trust me, we are all freaking out, but we are doing our best to stay calm. Carlos is not dying. Let's just say that now. He's not dying, so don't freak out about that.
People
will get
are
I
okay.
can't believe we even have to say this anymore.
It may be, it may be cool to see TK being a little bit fussy and a little bit over nursing Carlos and little mother henning him. I wouldn't be nice to see that.
It's the only reason why I think any of the fandom was like, it's Carlos's turn. I think Grace and I were both the ones to be like, it's Carlos's turn.
It's been Carlos's turn since the season started.
And I'm sorry, guys, but like, it's true. And I know I'm one of those people who is like, I take it back. I do not want Carlos to get hurt.
Oh no, I'm still fully like, yes, let's work Carlos, but also how dare you murder Carlos? Fight me, bitch.
Relatable.
Once I feel better. But also I will pass my judgment on whether or not it was worthy of what I hoped when the episode comes out.
So
I
stay
agree.
tuned for our next episode. We will have a lot to talk about.
Per usual.
Yeah,
Of course.
basically.
Of course. Can't expect nothing else.
Amen. Thank you guys so much for joining us and listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Anchor. We're also on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts, and everywhere you get your podcasts, and Amazon too. On iTunes and Spotify, please rate us and leave us a review. It would mean a lot to us. You can follow the podcast on our socials at 911LS Roundup on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Be sure to join our Discord server, which the link will be in the description of this podcast and also in our Instagram bio.
You guys can follow me, Katie, at Love with Tarlos on Instagram. I'm also on TikTok. I've been talking about it a lot in this episode, so I feel like I should promote it a little bit. And also on Twitter at For the Love of Tarlos.
You guys can follow me, Grace, at Ronan Rafa 911 on Instagram and at SheepGirl31 on Twitter.
And you can follow me, EJ, at EJ8302 on Instagram, Twitter, and I do have a TikTok. I just don't make any videos yet. So we'll get there. Bye.
Bye.